Hi guys, Billy back, and this time we're going to be looking at the 1/6 scale Hot Toys Iron Man Mark V. This is the diecast version, it's just arrived. But before we get into this, I just have to do a quick cut to a previous statement I made in a video recently. There's only a few special ones that I'm getting diecasts of. I think a Mark 43 and the Mark III were the best ones for me. Everything else in between I'm more than happy to get the plastic versions of. I was tempted to get the Mark V diecast, but I don't know. There's only a finite amount of money that we all have, so sometimes you just got to bite the bullet and accept that maybe what you've got is good enough, you know? And I really like the Mark V, it's one of my favourite suits. Yeah, I'll flip faster than Lando Calrissian. Although if recent articles are to be believed, he'll flip for anyone. Yeah, anyway, yeah. I decided to get this guy. I sold the original because, I don't know, I saw it, I really wanted it, and you know, what can I say? Okay, I'm not going to do an unboxing because it's already unboxed. All the batteries are in, so we're just going to have a quick look and see what we get. Now, the actual figure itself is a fairly substantial weight. It's pretty nice and heavy, but I think the actual die cast is mostly in the legs, and I have a strong feeling it's all on the inside rather than the outside. I don't feel a lot of die cast external pieces. Maybe these bits might be die cast. I'm not 100% certain. Maybe a little bit of this is, but a lot of it feels plastic to me, so I don't know. The inner thigh bit is a lot colder than the rest, so I get a feeling this inner thigh bit here, this is die cast. Still, such an improvement over the original, just absolutely in every way it excels. Okay, and here he is all lit up and ready to go. One of the nice things about this figure is that the LEDs are really good. Sometimes, like on the original Mark V, the LED on the chest was super bright. So bright, in fact, was it, that it made it really difficult to look at because it was, you know, really piercing in the eyes how bright it was. But they seem to have diffused it a little bit in the chest now, so that you can actually look at this figure and it's not going to damage your retinas, which is, it's always a bonus. I really like how the eyes light up pretty nicely. Again, we're going to go in and have a look at the head sculpt in a second, but you can see that the palms light up really good as well. Obviously they have the LED leading into the wrists like normal, and then these pop off, and then it's just there through there and it doesn't light up. But I'm very wary about putting batteries in my figures simply because them little tiny button batteries leak. They're just cheap little rubbish batteries. It's very hard to actually get really good quality ones as well. So to be honest, I don't normally put them in the figure because if it leaks and it damages all the electrics, well, there's no point having it then, is there? I never light these up anyway, so I'm just going to take the batteries out again and just have them displayed on the shelf minus the lights. Okay, just a quick one. I find it quite difficult to get the forearm off initially. Maybe there was a bit of paint that stuck it on there and it was really tough. A little bit easier this time, but that is something to watch out for because when you are taking these off for the first time, it does feel a little bit like you're pushing it in a way you shouldn't be. And you know how expensive these things are, so it's more important to try and get that fitted on properly. Okay, head sculpt rise. This is a really nice paint application. I've heard there's been some QC issues with this figure, especially with the head sculpt. Some people have had mismatches of paint or splodges or paint chips. Luckily for me, I didn't have any of that, thank Christ. This is a really nice representation of the Mark V. It's a really good head size. It fits the body really well. Some people have said that these lines are a little bit too thick, you know, because when he puts it on, it's, you know, the lines are almost invisible. I think this really helps with the compartmentalization of the figure, the look and aesthetic of it, which is tiny little bits all gathering together to try and form a suit, and this looks just as bitsy and as broken up as the rest of it. So I really like that. I really like the fact that it hasn't completely closed up, and it could be just about to. But again, same with the Mark V, they've come in and they've got some mild chips and damage, if you can say chips or damage, but yeah, there's tiny little scratches on the side of the ears here. We've got some little bit of paint chippage here, as movie accurate as we've ever got in the Mark V anyway. And again, you've got some slight variation and chipping there, and it looks really good. I mean, this part here slides back and lifts out at the same time, and that's a really nice design feature because then when you put it back in, it just seamlessly goes together like that. In terms of paint application, I seem to have been very lucky and got an almost flawless version. He's just so well painted. There's chippings and there's scratches, but it still looks very glossy, very high quality. Everything on here seems to work really well. There's no bleeding off of paint anywhere that I can see. I've really had a good look at this. I had this out last night and I was turning it all around and having a really good look. I did not get any issues whatsoever with the paint application. I have to say that I am so glad that I swapped over from the original to this version. There's so many different features. It articulates better. The paint application is far superior. Any negative points that I can throw at this figure pale in comparison to all the positives. And here he is with the alternate painted head sculpt. To be honest, Hot Toys know how to do Robert Downey Jr. by now. They've made his head untold amount of times, so they know what they're doing. He's got some battle damage because he's just had come out of a car crash. Got grey skin texture. It's got a nice little bit of battle damage. The blood on his face, it's not as bright. It's a little duller than I would have thought it would come out like, but it still looks really nice, and there's no real paint defects that I can see. He's even got a little bit of the old crow's feet in there, and he's got loads of dirt on his face where he's just come out of the crash. Got no complaints from me. That's a really nice head sculpt. One of the things kinda I like and I don't like. I have very mixed feelings on how they've done this, but the head sculpt is on a like separate neck. So this neck, I think, can be removed from this head sculpt, and I like that, but I don't like that. I mean, it's very strange. I do like it when they have the neck and the head sort of attached together, because everything seamlessly blends in and there's a lot less few joints. But because they've actually done it this way, I think he has a lot more movement in the head that doesn't irritate the neck, and it doesn't rub against all the paint and all that. And then if you really want, you can take this guy off, pop the head off the neck, and then put it onto another body that may have a neck to make a second version of him. Now, as you can see, I have the Stark Racer 11 suit, and I think this would work way better with this than vice versa. This was a really nice third-party head sculpt that I got, but in all honesty, it's always better to go with an original Hot Toys. So now I can take that off the neck and put it onto this already necked body, and it shouldn't be a problem. And he can also hold the suitcase, and it's just going to be fantastic. So I'm really, you know, I've got mixed feelings. I don't like it, some of it, because sometimes the neck looks a bit different. I don't know, it just stands out a little bit. I don't know. So to have it for the Stark Racer 11 thing is fantastic. Articulation on this figure is superior to the original in every single way. Not only that, but they've added some really nice touches in order for you to be able to get some extra poses out of him. They've even got movable armor pieces so that it works a little better. And the main focus of that, and the main sort of thing of that, is this bicep movement. Because where you can get this up all the way there, it pushes the bicep armor upwards and over the original piece of the top part of the armor, and you can get a real great, more than 90-degree bend. They're saying up to 120-degree bend, but I don't know. But and you can get some, like I showed you at first, you can get him up in a full repulsor pose, no problem whatsoever. If you wanted to push this in, you can bring these pieces of armor inwards and push these up so that they fit into his chest a little better, so you can roll the arm forward a little bit more, and that will fit much nicer. And again, that's a really nice touch. And then of course you can do what they do on a lot of Iron Man figures, is pull the body up that way, and you can get a really nice ab crunch. And this one, because of its loads of different parts, you can actually get away with posing this in a really good forward crunch position like that without too much hassle. But when you do lean it forward, you do get some exposed areas here. That shouldn't matter too much. I mean, if you're posing this guy in any way, you're going to pose him from the front, so I don't think it actually affects it too much. The arm comes up way more than that to the side there. You can get that right in, and he can bring his arm, well, you can get in your hand to point at his chest arc reactor if you really wanted to, and you get full 180-degree rotation. Why you'd want to do that, I don't know. These shoulder pads are on 2-point articulation. They're on 2 pivots, one at the bottom and one at the top, so you can turn it upwards that way, and bring it in towards. So there's really nice articulation. That'll go anywhere you want it to. Waist turn can turn that much, so it's really nice. It can turn that much that side. which is really good for an Iron Man figure, believe it or not. Then you got the hands. Obviously they turn pretty well. Got to be careful of these little bits of the gauntlet. These are attached to the hands now, whereas the original had the gauntlets attached to the wrist, and that caused a QC issue as well because it was so flimsy that it happened on my one. The wrist guard fell off and it snapped, and you couldn't put it back on no matter what you did. So it's nice that they've managed to correct that mistake. And one of the strange things about this figure is the legs. This is where the figure can be a bit of a letdown, because as you can see, there is some articulation here with these parts. They lift up, and this bit lifts up a little bit, but it seems to be more on a spring, like this butt flap, I think you'd call it. But it seems to be on a spring, so it springs back into place. And you can bring the leg up about that much. So if you really want to get that leg up and have him kicking the car away, can't really. But then you got a really great ratcheted knee joint, and it goes in. It's got a really good bend on it. Double bends as per usual. Toe articulation there's a little bit there, not a lot, but there is a little bit there. And then of course you've got hand and foot articulation with a little bit of swivel either side. You've got to be careful not to let this ankle rub onto the bottom of the leg guard here. And then the thigh swivel, there's about a 20-degree thigh swivel, and that's about it before it stops. And I thought, why didn't they have like a drop down, where you pull the legs down? It does have that, but it's really, really, really small. Like, it's really tough as well to get it out. Look, I'm pulling the torso more than the leg, and I can't do it. It's really difficult. I mean, obviously I'm trying to keep this still as well so I can film it for you, but it's really tough to get that thigh to drop down. It drops, it's such a fraction to drop, it's negligible. It doesn't even do much. One of the real touches of this figure is that they've ended up doing some articulation of the bottom armor pieces as well. And this is where all that effort went into redesigning and remaking all these parts. They didn't have time for thigh swivel, obviously, but they definitely went above and beyond in trying to recreate the Mark V as best they could. Obviously, there were certain things that they couldn't do. For one thing, there isn't much of that kind of thing in the arms. I know they couldn't do it here or anything because of all the light features inside there. But it would have been nice if you could have done a bit more in the arm here, maybe at the bottom pull one of these down or a couple of these down somewhere. But unfortunately, that's just the way it is. However, when you come down to the chest area, you can pull all these pieces open to look like it's just about to all come together. You can pull down these rib cage parts, I guess you'd call them, just sort of rib cage armour. You can pull these out and you can see some mechanical effects underneath. And that looks really cool. Then you come down, I lifted all these flaps up because it makes it look like it's not together as much. And then the magic is down here in the lower parts of the leg. I think there's 8 sort of articulated pieces in each leg. And that's exactly where all the time and effort went into making this figure, is definitely these parts. And it's such a nice touch. And with these different pieces of armour, it just really sticks out a lot. Now, the QC issue in years to come is definitely going to be people saying, oh, one of these bits snapped off, one of the hinges is broke, because there's a hinge at the leg area and there's a hinge at the armour area, so that you can get lots of articulation out of it. You can push that down, you can bend this forward, you can turn this upwards and outwards at the armour section. But unfortunately, they're going to break for some people. If you're going to pose it in a way, pose it for a very long time like that and then never pose it like that again, or just be very, very careful, because those bits are so tiny, it's easily breakable. So just be really careful. This is one of those high-end collectibles where you have to really, really think about every tiny little movement you're going to do with this guy. But because they've done it that way, you get such a beautiful effect. Okay, and here he is with all the battle damaged parts attached. As you can see, you get a whole full left arm, and it also comes with a closed fist version of the hand. Sadly, it's neither of them have the arc reactor bit in there, despite the fact that there is the ability to put batteries in there. Then if you are going to do that, then you take that off and you just use a normal repulsor hand, because if it's facing that way, you're not going to need to see battle damage on there anyway. So it is a shame they didn't do that, but never mind. There's some really nice scoring and paint chipping and burn marks and tears and chunks. There's little bits sticking out where the armour's been torn, but it's not fully ripped off. You can see on the bicep there's denting and smoke and dirt. It's an okay sort of battle damage version. This is the kind of thing, you know, Hot Toys have done this before. They know what they're doing. So it's nothing out of their comfort zone, I don't think, to do these battle damage parts. They haven't done anything too extreme. But then you've got these two little rib cage sections. These aren't articulated like the original non-battle damage versions, because why would you need that? But then there's this top part of the arc reactor. You put this arc reactor on, it's more dented and battered. And then on the top here, he's got like a whip mark, like a scored whip mark there. And then of course you get this battle damage shoulder pad here, which again looks like it's been burnt electrically, and also it's got some tears and a potential whip mark in there as well. Some really nice battle damage features. But one of the main issues that you've got is that shoulder pad. It just comes off like this part here. It's just on a ball joint, but the ball joint is attached to another joint, and then it stems down into another joint at the shoulder. So there's 3 different sections of articulation there. So when you're trying to put this shoulder pad on it just keeps flipping, and every time you put some pressure on it, it moves around. It just feels like, because it's a clear plastic piece, it feels like you could easily snap that after a while. So again, if you're going to be doing all the swapping around and reposing of this guy, you have to be really careful, and that shoulder pad is going to be a pain in the butt, because I'm not going to show the battle damage part. I always like my Iron Men clean mostly, so I'm going to have to take that shoulder pad back off and try and put the original back on, and that's going to be a hairy moment. Like your heart jumps into your throat every time it sort of flips one way or flips another way, and you think, crap, is it snapped? But you're still worried about it anyway. In terms of accessories, he doesn't actually come with many accessories. He comes with 2 fisted hands, 2 repulsor hands, 2 articulated finger hands, which is a very staple of all Iron Men by Hot Toys now. And of course you get this sort of, I think this is Whiplash's arc reactor that he holds in his hand at the end when Whiplash is being pulled away laughing at him, and he stands there looking at it, surprised to see it. And I think it's a really nice touch, because if you do have Whiplash, it's a really nice touch to have the Iron Man stand there and hold it in his hand. But also at the same time, if you don't have Whiplash, it's like a nod to say, like, oh, you know, Whiplash is part of this too. And then of course he comes with the suitcase. Now I had the original suitcase from the Mark V, and I can't really see much difference between the two. This could even be the same one. It's plastic, it's the same weight, there's no die cast in there or anything, there's nothing different. The only problem is this doesn't come with the handcuffs, which is a bit of a disappointment, because the original came with the handcuffs, and I know it doesn't really need it, but it would have been nice to be able to have that. So I think people have been hunting down the handcuffs after a while to go with this guy. So if you got Mark V and you got the handcuffs with it, keep hold of them cuffs, because they could be worth something in a little while. And then of course you've just got all the basic non-battle damage parts that I just took off. Okay guys, that's it for the review, I think. I mean, I've shown you as much articulation as I'm willing to do. I think this is a really nice figure. Shame there isn't much thigh swivel there. It's not terrible, but it's not bad either. That's it, I think. I'm just going to put him in one more pose. We're going to test and see. So if you wait around for a sec, let's have a look if I can get him in that pose. This could take a while. Yeah, you kind of can get him into a ground pound position, I think. I've just used that stand to elevate him up a little bit so you can see the face a bit more. I think I've seen a couple of other people manage to do it. You've just got to do quick little movements here, tweak, 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 till you actually get him in that position. But yeah, you can definitely get him in that position. And one thing I missed when I was doing the rest of the articulation, man's got back flaps in it, but I'm not entirely sure what they did for the suit. You can get those up as well, which is nice. Oh, and also I just want to touch on some of the really nice depth that they've managed to get into the back of the arm, which they didn't do on the original. They couldn't get as deep into the detail here, but as you can see here, there is a layer underneath, and it's a good chunk of space between the top layer and the bottom layer, so it looks way more 3D, way more deep, far more detailed. And then of course you've got this really nice butterfly joint that comes out a little bit, and you can get more movement that way. It's really great. One quick tip: if you are having problem putting the batteries in and you're using this, don't. You put a battery in there, there's not enough strength to hold it and grip it properly, and then it just pops and flies out everywhere. So you really need to get yourself a decent pair of tweezers with a little bit of grip up the top here, flat grip here, so that when you actually use it, you hold battery in place. I'm blown away by this figure, if I'm honest. The more I've moved it around and rejigged it and everything, the fact that I can get a ground pound pose out of it, I can get the legs, the armour on the legs to stick out, and articulate to make him look like the suit is still going on him, the battle damaged parts to make him look like he's just come out of action with whiplash. Just, you know, many figures. Sometimes several figures come along and you look at them and it's like, yeah, that's a hot toy. The articulation's there and everything, and it just ticks a lot of boxes. But they've actually gone the full hog with this. He sat down and said, how can we make this better? And they actually have. They've gone back and improved on almost every flaw that was in the original version. Not only that, but they have added features that you wouldn't normally see. It is a little bit of a shame that there isn't much more in the term of accessories. You do get, you know, like apart from the battle damage pieces, obviously, a head and the suitcase, but you don't need a much with this guy. It's just a great figure. I really like how they've done the stand as well. It has actually a little bit of asphalt sort of tech. It doesn't have asphalt texture, but it has a sort of matte sticker on there with the sort of asphalt from the race course, so it is appropriate, and that's something that I think they should do a lot more. Like, you get these sort of stands with the Arkham Knight figures, and what they did was they've just put sort of like a picture of the Arkham Knight on there and a bit of a logo, but it's not actually in fitting with it. It just looks like they've stuck a sticker on there advertising the figure, whereas this actually feels like this is something the figure would, this Mark V would stand on. You know, it's part of the scenery, so to speak, and that's what I think they should do a little bit more of with Hot Toys. Instead of sticking logos all over it, have it make it and complement the figure. But also in terms of the actual stand itself, I'm not a massive fan of it. When I had this in there, when I had the crotch grabber in the actual stand, I pushed it all the way down, but it still moved a little bit, and with the weight of this figure, it does jiggle around a little bit. Now, I'm not going to use this stand simply because a lot of my stands are on invisible perspexes, and I've actually made one already so that this guy can go on there. But if you are going to use this stand, just keep an eye on it from time to time. Make sure it's not leaning too far forward, because if it does start to lean, you could risk damaging this plastic, and then all of a sudden your figure falls on the ground. Those little tiny articulated pieces that you love so much could be smashed to smithereens. So just do yourself a favour, just keep an eye on the figure. It's not going to be hard, because you are going to be walking past this figure and you're going to look at it a lot. Okay guys, I love the figure. I'm so glad I upgraded. There's so much intricate detail in this. I'm still looking at it right now and I'm seeing little tiny bits of detail in underneath the bicep and around that area. You are paying for it. And everyone just goes, oh, stop whinging about the prices. You have to touch on it, because it's simply a lot of money. If you really, price of this makes it very difficult to justify getting unless you're a humongous fan. And you have to say that. To the UK, including import taxes and everything, it's £350 easily. And that's no small amount of money. But if you are going to pump that kind of money into it, make sure you love it. I'm going to give this an 8.5. He's amazing. He doesn't get a 9 because I think the thigh swivel is a bit of a letdown. And also, I think they could have gone and done a little bit more articulation in the arms where he's suiting up, just like they did in the legs. I do find it, again, very difficult to put the batteries into this thing and turn the lights on, which is a real shame. It's one of those things that one day they're going to figure out a way of being able to like magnetically power these, so when you put him on a magnetic stand and flip the switch, the current will go through the body and light up the irons, the arc reactor and the eyes. I genuinely think that is something that they could really look into. And if they did that, you're looking at a 9.5 to 10. But as it is, he's a fantastic figure, and if you've got him on pre-order, you'll have no regrets, I promise you. Okay guys, thanks a lot for watching. Like and subscribe. And now I'm just going to go through and I'm going to read you just a few things you could buy with £350 if you didn't decide to get this guy, just because it's fun to depress you. Alright guys, thanks a lot. Bye bye. Okay, here we go. A PS4 Pro. A PSVR starter set with 2 wands. An entry-level 4K TV with HDR. A reasonable grade laptop. 100 pints of lager in a pub. 6,800 Oreo biscuits. A mid-range slimline dishwasher. A cordless Dyson Hoover. 48 Five Guys bacon cheeseburgers. A cheap week in Benidorm. An Nvidia 1070 graphics card. 2 hours 15 minutes with a low-end escort, or so my mate said. 4 movie replica lightsabers. 2.5 pairs of Apple AirPods. An average priced children's birthday party. My silence about what you did on that stag weekend in Prague. Your lawn mowed for an entire year. Almost anything in CEX. A chicken coop and 1 pet chicken. A 9-carat white gold ring. A partridge in a pear tree. 4 one-year-old peacocks. 9 gaucho steaks. 17 one-hour juggling lessons, helicopter ride and dinner for 2, 10 pairs of expensive used ladies' knickers, or so my dad tells me.